Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. I wanted to take some time to talk about a totally different subject than the things I normally talk about, but I do think it's relevant since, we have a little bit of a relationship between you, my wonderful audience, and myself, and I thought it would be an interesting thing to talk about that not many people discuss, but is, I think, very real, and is something that I'm kind of personally navigating right now. And this is the subject of audience capture. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, audience capture essentially means that you put out some sort of content and you get rewarded for it by your audience, and therefore you tend to go down this rabbit hole, which may not be kind of the content that you want to stand for or the content that you believe, or you can kind of get into this compromising position. You'll see this where you have some sort of an author or something who writes a book and then the audience really likes, a particular character, and as a result they won't kill off the character because of the fact that the audience likes that character, even if the story should involve the character dying or whatever. So you can obviously see the opposite of that, which is something like George R.R. Martin, Game of Thrones, where he has no problems. In fact, he likes killing off characters, and it seems like the audience likes when he kills off characters. The more they love them, the more it's better to kill them off. But I'm bringing it up here today for the purpose of this channel because it's something that I do try to not do, and yet I can kind of feel the pressure of it. And so sometimes I think it's maybe worth thinking about. So the idea, when you're putting out content, of course, it's rewarding to get viewers and to get positive engagement and feedback and all the things that come along with that. However, the core should be, at least from my perspective, to put out good quality, authentic content, which may not actually be popular content, right? You may not say what's popular. You may not give into the biases and previous beliefs of the audience, especially on controversial issues, especially on things where people have kind of like a very niche viewpoint. These things are likely to tick people off. And so there's this negative effect there. Now, as an audience member, I think when I'm watching content, I have a little bit of a responsibility to reward people for taking risks in this regard, right? It's really useful to recognize that we need more voices like that, right? We need more people out there who are willing to say what's unpopular and not just go based on what's going to get clicks, not just go based on what's going to be popular, not what's going to get, likes and shares and all this other sort of thing, but to say the things that happen to be authentic and real, etc. Some of maybe examples of this are, generally speaking, when I put out cryptocurrency content, which is content that I think is valuable, it's important to the world, because I believe that fundamentally Web3 is an important technology for the world that we hopefully will build. It's typically some of our less popular videos. However, I continue to put it out there because I think it's valuable and important for people to get some background in that. Another example is inflation. So, some people like to sell a hyperinflation story. People like to, have the whole thing going down that road. And I've very notably not done that. I've put out a bunch of content on inflation that is not the mainstream narrative, and I think that's kind of the point, is that it's not the mainstream narrative. I could pick a number of other issues that are pretty popular, and with the type of audience who I tend to attract on this channel, it's often people who fall into particular baskets, and so there's a certain psychological, emotional pressure to either A, create content in that direction, or to stay away from saying things that may tick off that audience, or they may be like, oh no, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, etc. Which I think is unfortunate. And so one of the things that I'm going to work on doing over the next little while is not to worry about that, and to just say, hey, listen, I'll put out the content that I think is accurate and reflects reality and is true. And if people get ticked off because it's not some narrative, well, to heck with them. That's their problem. They can go somewhere else and feed into their own biases. But if they would like something that is going to challenge those beliefs, and hopefully do so in like a constructive, logical way, right? The idea is not to attack or dismiss a view just in its own concept, but actually based on, hey, listen, this is based on data. This is how it actually works. Here's, you can go and look at the laws or look at whatever else. And I think I wanted to mention this, to give you kind of some perspective on where things are coming from my standpoint, but also because, again, as an audience member on lots of other pieces of content, I think it's great if we can try and bring support when things are being done that are inherently going to be, they require courage, they require some sort of stepping out there because the payoff isn't going to be there, right? When you speak something that there's a payoff, no big deal. When you speak and there's a negative consequence, well, that's something special, and we want to guard and protect that. It's kind of the key piece if you think of freedom of speech, right? The whole point of freedom of speech is specifically freedom of speech for people who you don't agree with. There's no big deal if you agree with them, but if you care about freedom of speech, then you should care about protecting the freedoms of those who disagree with you and say things that you might think are complete nonsense. So, similar idea in this regard. Anyway, I hope that kind of gives you a different perspective. I know it's a totally different type of video. Thank you again for being here and for being our audience, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you on the next video.